Okay, hello everyone. I thought I would try something really interesting and fun today, which is diving into the Reddit thread r/HSP. My podcast partner Ann Catherine and I had talked about this idea of going through this Reddit thread on our podcast. And to be honest, the first time that I went in and started scrolling and looking at the posts, I got maybe 6 posts in, and I felt like my brain was going to explode from all the things that were coming up in my mind that I wanted to say in response to these posts. And I just thought it would be way too intense. But you know what? We're gonna give it a try. We're gonna dive into it today, and we're just gonna hope for the best and that my brain doesn't explode from all the things it's trying to process as a highly sensitive coach going through this endless thread of HSPs talking about their struggles and their experiences. So here we go. And if you haven't checked out the podcast yet, I highly recommend you do. We actually just recently did a Am I the A-hole Reddit thread podcast episode 2 weeks ago, something like that. So go check that out if you haven't seen our podcast yet. And here's a little clip of the podcast just to give you a taste.
I told her that since she's so difficult to talk to because she's overly sensitive, that perhaps we shouldn't talk at all.
Oh!
She hasn't spoken to me since. Am I the asshole?
There's so much to unpack. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start. Okay, here we go. Oh dear, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but you know what? It'll be fun. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Okay. So, the first thing, do you guys cry a lot over small things? I definitely think I would say that I used to do this. I don't know if I cry so much over little things anymore, but let's read what they have to say. I made a post sometime back on this sub about having cliquish office colleagues. I thought that I would get over it eventually, but today I had this breakdown because I felt very lonely in my workplace. Felt like the anxiety and the hypervigilance was so unbearable by the end of the day that I burst into tears and started sobbing heavily. I don't think that my clique-ish office colleagues could affect me so much. Small acts of them, which they are probably not even noticing, are hurting me so much. It's like triggering some old wound I can't place a finger on. How do you guys cope with all the crying? It's so painful to feel everything so intensely. I am so pissed off at being so sensitive, I swear. Okay, well, first of all, I totally understand this person's struggle, especially working in a workplace with other people. That's gonna happen. Things are gonna happen that are gonna bug you, and it just sucks. The thing that and this is actually a video I have working on at the moment, is talking about absorbing other people's emotions, because I think that highly sensitive people, especially when we're told over and over again that we're too sensitive, can kind of have this tendency to go through this conditioning process where we feel like our senses are no longer able to be relied on for information and to gauge the world when we're told over and over that we're too sensitive. And so then what ends up happening is that we rely less on our own internal sensors for what is going on in our environments and in our lives, and start to orient our focus and our emotional radar on other people to kind of learn about what we should be feeling or thinking. And as a result of doing that, we end up kind of being other-oriented more so than we are ourselves. And so for this person in particular, it kind of sounds to me like her focus, unintentionally, totally probably by default and not even realizing she's doing it, is putting a lot of her energetic focus onto the other people around her instead of her own internal experience. And I think that if she were able to focus more on her own experience, her own work, her own sense of self, her own self-worth, her own thoughts and feelings about herself and what she's experiencing, I think that whatever's going on with her coworkers and them excluding her or whatever silly, immature things it sounds like they're doing, I don't know that it would affect her as much. And I think that when she says at the last line, this is the kind of stuff that really just, I feel like it's so hard to summarize this quickly and effectively give this person a good enough response, because I totally feel her pain when she says, it sucks, it's so painful to feel everything so intensely. I'm so pissed off at being so sensitive. This is the thing that I feel like sucks and that I want other HSPs to know, is that just because you are sensitive or have deep emotions doesn't mean you have to be tethered to everything else going on in your external environment and getting like whipped around by the emotional wind of everything happening around you. It doesn't have to be like that. You can be sensitive without being tethered to everything and everyone else around you. And that kind of comes with awareness and practice. And I'm speaking from my own experience that once I was able to gain these sort of skills and this awareness and reorient myself and my attention and my focus and my energy on myself and in my own internal experiences, and understand, especially learning more about psychology, that there are legitimate reasons why people behave the way that they do, and understanding that their behavior is a reflection of them and what they're going through and their perspective and their lens and their experiences in life, way more than it is of anyone else that they're reacting to or responding to. So that kind of helps me take things less personally as well. So a lot of things going on here, but I really hope for anyone who resonates with this and feels like their sensitivity is a burden, that you start to see that it's not necessarily your sensitivity that's the problem. It's that maybe you're in unhealthy relationships, unhealthy work environments, unhealthy home environments, or maybe don't have the tools or skills yet or awareness yet to understand how to navigate these types of things without feeling like it's yanking you in every direction as you move through your life. Okay, enough of that one. Let's move on to something else. Struggling with the world news. Oh boy, does this. Yeah, I haven't even clicked on this yet, but I already resonate, already understand this completely. I'm in the US, and the rise of heated emotions, all the sadness, and seeing all the escalation in the world has put me in this place of not feeling hope and just bad. I feel heavy all the time. Anyone else dealing with that? Okay, well, first of all, yes, every HSP is dealing with this right now, especially if you're in the United States, but all over the world, all the time, there's horrible things happening and it's out of our control. And to feel things so deeply and feel so much empathy and compassion for people and not feel like you have the power to wave a magic wand and make everything better can be really, really intense and really difficult. And I am willing to admit that sometimes my way of dealing with the world news is to just kind of check out and focus on my own life. But honestly, that doesn't come from a place of me not caring. It kind of comes from a place of me caring too much and feeling like I have so many things in my own personal life that I need to be focusing on and addressing, that it feels like a lot to worry about the whole world. And yeah, I agree. It is really, really, really hard sometimes to feel so intensely and see everything that's going on and feel everyone's emotions. And I just know that anytime I've gotten really sucked into the news, especially because, I don't want to get into too much of a heated, controversial issue here, but it does seem like most of the news outlets are biased. They're not giving you the straight facts. They're not showing you good news as well as the bad news. It's all about kind of portraying this fear thing and getting people to have these fears, and even things that try to motivate us to act sometimes can be really intense, that they're trying to make you feel worse or make you feel bad. I really wish personally, I've always felt like it would be such a good idea somehow, somewhere, if there was a self-nominated volunteer non-HSP that could work as a news filter or translator, so that there could be a news outlet that was HSP friendly, so that gave you the facts, gave you the information about how you can help, and gave you kind of a more neutral observer perspective of the news. Because I think there are a lot of HSPs that really do care and really could contribute to a lot of these causes and things that matter to people. But when we are hit in the face immediately every single time we turn on the news with something really negative and this perspective of fear and anger and sadness and all of these things, it's so intense and so emotional for us that we have to just shut it off, which is unfortunate, because the HSPs are really caring and want to do something about it and could be the ones that would end up taking action and donating or volunteering or doing the kinds of things that would actually help improve matters. So it is my wish someday that there will be some sort of a news outlet, channel, article, whatever, kind of like, I know there's something called the Skim, which is like a summarized news thing. So maybe that's the solution. But yeah, something like that, where someone is taking in the news and filtering it in such a way that can give people who are more sensitive the information and the news that they want to have to stay in touch with what's going on in the world without feeling like they're being bombarded with all these negative emotions and these negative viewpoints about how bad the world is and how messed up everything is. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that, because I completely agree with you. It is really, really hard to be dealing with these world issues right now, especially because nowadays we're so connected to everything. We can hear about something horrible happening on the other side of the world within minutes, which is kind of amazing and a good thing in some ways to keep us informed and keep us wanting to act, but it absolutely can be very, very overwhelming. So news in moderation, Try to get your news from sites that are not slapping you in the face with negativity and are more neutral. And yeah, I feel for you. Sometimes I feel like there's no room in this world for me and my big, giant hurt feelings. Can anyone relate? Do you ever wonder if you're the creator of all of your own bad experiences and feelings? I feel like this is so significantly and so often. Whose fault is that really? Why make this anyone else's problem? I often feel abandoned and insignificant. Okay, before I even read that sentence, I was gonna say it kind of sounds like this person has learned that their experiences and their processing and their emotions is a burden. And so now they're trying to feel like they need to deal with everything on their own. And this is actually, as a highly sensitive coach, a coach for highly sensitive people, I have noticed a trend where a lot of HSPs, especially if they've been through a lot of really hard things, tend to lean into this sort of hyper independent mode way of dealing with things because they've learned that they're a burden, or they feel like their emotions are too much for people. They just haven't found the right place, safe space within themselves, with a therapist, with friends, whatever, an environment where they feel like they can healthfully process and move through their emotions. So they just decide, you know what, I would just make it easier for people and I'm just gonna keep all this stuff to myself. But humans are hardwired for connection. We need a safe space to be able to process and open up and connect and share our difficult experiences. And it's actually our empathy as people, and especially as HSPs, is what helps bond us. And the beauty in sharing your difficult times with someone is that you end up building deeper relationships through that exchange of empathy and compassion. So it is really a blessing to be able to share some of these more difficult experiences and feelings with others and kind of have them see you and validate you and be with you. Sometimes all you need when you're really struggling or really not feeling well is just to know that you're not alone and have someone else with you. I mean, even reading on, I often feel abandoned and insignificant, but I'm often told I'm selfish and looking for reasons to be upset. How do you decipher these conflicting things? Okay, so definitely there's two sides of this coin here that I often think about when it comes to highly sensitive people. Is that on the one hand, absolutely, we need to be discerning about what types of relationships and environments we're bringing our vulnerability to, because some people truly have no tools or interest or whatever they need to be able to really sit with us, communicate well, have empathy, know how to be with us in our pain. That's a skill. It takes emotional maturity and communication skills to be able to meet someone where they need to make them feel validated and seen, and that their feelings matter and make sense. So it sounds to me like this person has had multiple formative experiences in their life where they've felt like they're a burden, or they've maybe been in relationships and environments that have not been supportive to them and their emotions. And I also like to remind HSPs that emotions are universal things. As highly sensitive people, yes, we have deeper emotional experiences and we process our experiences to greater depth. But everyone in the world has emotions. Everyone goes through the experiences of having to process their experiences and their emotions. And there are plenty of people out there, probably more than you think, that can relate to whatever emotional experience you're going through that's challenging for you. And on the other side of this coin is that I can relate to this as well and speak to this, so I'm not, being judgmental about highly sensitive people, is that if you grow up as a highly sensitive person and you don't have the tools and skills to work through your own emotions, if you're not taught how to sit with your feelings or communicate and express them in healthy ways and allow them to move through your experience, because they are meant to be temporary, emotions are meant to be felt and released. So if you don't have those tools, and if you were never taught how to do this, then yes, going through life as a highly sensitive person and trying to work through these emotional experiences can be very challenging, and you can kind of feel like you're out of control. And maybe there have been periods in your life where you have went to other people for emotional support in a way that was not healthy, like expecting them to meet emotional needs that you should be filling for yourself. So there is this kind of balance between finding those relationships that are really supportive and can actually meet you where you are and validate your human experiences of feeling emotions, while at the same time developing self-regulation skills and learning the difference between what is healthy to seek from other people and what you can give yourself. And oftentimes there's a balance between seeking emotional validation and understanding from yourself and others, because both of those things are really important. So if you're going to other people all the time to emotionally regulate, that can lean into an unhealthy side of that scale, as well as the same on the opposite end. If you're only going to yourself and you're not leaning on anyone else in your life or opening up to anybody, that's also unhealthy. So it's kind of like this balance in the middle. And again, that those discerning skills to make sure that you are sharing your vulnerability and your inner world with people that have displayed behavior over time that proves that they deserve your trust to be open. Wow, there's a lot. There's so much. There's so many things in here. Ooh, okay. Do HSPs have very less pain tolerance? So yes, HSPs do have a lower pain tolerance, which, I guess is just one of those things. Just one of those things. You can't find a positive to that. It's just, but also like, again, this is the whole trait we're talking about of being more sensitive to everything. And while that can be very overwhelming and can be seen as a negative, if you're in very painful situations or you're in relationships or environments that are unhealthy, being sensitive can also be a brilliant superpower, because being able to detect something is off or something is painful early is actually a really, really good survival tool. It's a very beneficial piece of information that helps inform you that something needs to be changed or adjusted in your life or your environments or your relationships. So being sensitive to pain is only a bad thing if you don't address it as soon as you notice that there's a problem. So try to see your sensitivity, especially if in this case, if it's to pain, as an early indicator, as a messenger trying to let you know that something in your life needs to be adjusted, or that you need something, that your body is asking you for something. That's what I would say about that. Meetings completely drain my energy, even one-to-one. I'm not sure if this is an HSP thing, but I've got work planned out for a day and I have a meeting before that. It just saps my energy. I just had a 20-minute meeting with only 2 people, but I feel like I can only breathe when the meeting stops. Why is this so taxing? I tense up completely from just having to listen and talk to someone. Can anyone relate? Okay, so what I would say here is yes, definitely can relate, but I think that these things, there's several things I would say here. Like if this was a client of mine, I would ask them, what kinds of self-care practices are you doing throughout your day before or after these meetings? Because if you are going into meetings like this feeling very exhausted or drained or overstimulated and then have to socialize, it can be a lot on your system. So I would ask this person how they're feeling going into this meeting. And if they're literally only having a 20-minute meeting and they went into the meeting feeling great and they come out of it feeling so drained, I would ask them, what is the energy of these people specifically that you're interacting with? Do they specifically drain your energy? Are they being unhealthy or demanding or doing something in their interactions with you that make you feel unsafe, that make you feel like you have to be on alert, that make you feel like you can't be yourself? And then I would also ask them, in general, in social situations, it doesn't matter how healthy this person is showing up or not, if they're just getting drained from any social interaction, I would want to ask them about whether or not they felt like they were performing for people. HSPs in general often complain about feeling exhausted, but there's a million different things that can contribute to your energy. And one of the sneaky ones that I don't think is talked about a lot is the energy that it takes to put on a facade all day long. So there are a lot of HSPs out there that were kind of conditioned to feel like their sensitivity was not something that was welcome in their relationships or their environment. So they bury it down. And then as a result, because they're not being their authentic selves, they're having to find a way to be someone else. And the amount of energy it takes to be someone you're not all the time is essentially performative. Like you're acting, you're putting on a character. And that takes effort because you're not in a relaxed, natural state. You're thinking about what you're saying and how you're presenting yourself, and all of these things are taking extra mental and emotional energy for you to show up a certain way. So I would ask this person if they feel like they're having to people please, if they feel like they're hiding themselves, if they feel like they're really stressed about how the person in these meetings are perceiving them, those types of things. So definitely a multi-layered issue here. I think it's one that a lot of HSPs can relate to. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it could be a little bit of being more oriented towards these people and attuning to the people that they're interacting with rather than staying in their own experience and just kind of having almost an energetic, imaginary boundary up of that is their experience and this is my experience, and I'm going to stay rooted in my own body and my own emotions and my own thoughts and not be so connected to these people that they're interacting with, especially if they are causing you relational stress, as in they're not showing up very respectfully, or they're not communicating well with you, or they're making you feel like you have to perform. So that's what I would say about that. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll wrap this up. Okay, this one I've been staring at for a minute and I'm not exactly sure what. Let's just get into it. How to deal with a negative colleague at work. I'm a high school teacher, and one teacher in my faculty is constantly negative. And when I say constantly, I mean everything she says is negative. She's either complaining about somebody or something, or a child in her class. It's draining me so much to the point I cannot deal with it much longer. I'm the type of person who finds it hard to hide my feelings on my face. Absolutely. I find myself dissociating and tuning out, but I don't want to seem rude. Sometimes she will say something and stare at me like she's waiting for a reaction or a response, when quite frankly, I have no energy to give her one. She will mumble something from across the room and expect people to hear her and respond. Her energy is really starting to affect me, but I don't want to seem rude. Okay, before I even continue, sometimes people will do this kind of stuff. Like, she's mentioning that it seems like she's waiting for a reaction, and just not from her, from everyone in the room. So first of all, it kind of sounds like the person that this person is dealing with is maybe attention seeking, maybe enjoying having an effect on people, enjoying getting a response or reaction from people. And honestly, the best way to deal with those kinds of people is not give them what they're looking for. Because if you do, then they learn that you're the kind of place and person that they can get that response from that they're looking for. And honestly, I don't think that this is a healthy way to interact with your coworkers, and she should know this. Like, the person who's being negative should know this. I mean, if it were me, I would probably say something like, I appreciate that you want to share with me, but I feel like we would benefit, all of us would benefit from switching to a more positive outlook. Like, if you want to actually work with this person, maybe say something along those lines, and in a polite and respectful way communicate that her negativity is affecting you. But to be honest, if this is not a relationship that you need to be interacting with, like if you're a school teacher and you have another teacher that's interacting with you, like, you know, in the faculty office or faculty meetings, you don't necessarily have to get along with that teacher to be able to do your job, in my opinion. I mean, I've been a teacher before, and I think that most of your job is focused on your kids and your lesson planning. So I wouldn't worry so much about what this other person thinks, or even if you have a good working relationship with them, because unless you're having to work on an actual project with them, does it really matter? You know, I think that it's important for this HSP who's writing this to think about what they want to put their energy into, because it's more important in this situation. Like, she's saying she doesn't want to be rude. I don't think she should worry about how she's coming off, or the fact that she would be coming off rude. Isn't this negative person being rude? Aren't they coming off in a negative way? This person who's being constantly complaining and draining everyone's energy and trying to get reactions out of people is intentionally trying to drain other people's energy, is intentionally trying to take and get something from other people. So do you really care to use up your energy trying to appease this person? I would say no. It's not worth your energy or your time, to be honest. At least that's my opinion. So I would recommend for this HSP to do what they need to do to protect their own energy, whether that's disengaging. If you just turn away from them and not engage when they say negative things, too bad. You have the right to behave whichever way you want, and this person does as well, and they're choosing to show up in a very negative and unhealthy, toxic way, right, in this work environment. And you have every right to decide how you want to respond and how you want to react and how you want to show up. So I would worry less about seeming rude and focus your energy on just doing what you need to do. If that means you leave the room, if that means you eat lunch somewhere else, if that means you speak up and say, I would really appreciate if you could be more positive when we're all together in this meeting room, or whatever it is. That's probably what I would say there. But let's finish reading what she said. I'm coming home absolutely drained, not just from teaching, which is incredibly soul destroying at times, as it is from the students as well, that I can deal with, but the constant negativity from this colleague is killing me. Yeah. So I think highly sensitive people tend to, in my experience that I've seen, worry so much about how we're coming off and if we are being rude or nice or whatever, and don't extend that same empathy and the same concern for our own feelings about how we're being treated or how the other person is behaving. This HSP writing this is so concerned about being rude to this other person who's being negative, but the negative person is not at all clearly concerned about how they are affecting the HSP. So in my mind, I always say when people are struggling with these types of relationships, if it's an important relationship in your life, whether it's a colleague that you want to work with and collaborate with going forward, it's a family member or a friend that's really important to you, Put energy into those relationships. Over communicate is better than under communicating, right? Be honest in a respectful way. But if these are relationships that are not important to you, that are not worth your energy to really think about how you're coming off, it's not even worth it. I mean, this person isn't worried about how they're coming off, right? So why even be concerned? Just do what you need to do to take care of yourself. I think ultimately at the end of the day, all we can do is control our own behavior and set boundaries, walk away when things are uncomfortable, and really know where you're investing your energy and being discerning about that, because we only have so much energy. And as HSPs, we have to be very conservative about what we put our energy into. And life is short, you know? So have some good boundaries, cultivate your own self-worth, and protect your own energy and act accordingly. All right, I think that's it for this first round. This was fun. There's so much in here that I probably have to do another one. So stay tuned for part 2.